Okay, so here we have the Dookey 1900. This has an offset arch on here. So what we're going to do, we're going to first show the machine working, then we're going to show what's involved to take that clamp off and install this clamp. Okay, so first let's just see this machine working. Okay. Trimmers work. This is what it looks like on the bottom. This is what it looks like it's up on the top. So one more time. Okay. All right. So now we're going to start taking everything off. And basically all you need to do is take this screw off here and then these two screws here. And that takes this whole assembly frame off from this plate. And then we can load up the pattern and put up the next pattern, the next arch. So go ahead and do that. We shut the power off, took the spring off. Get to that side. You can see we took the spring off here. And just that one screw, it takes that off. Now, notice, on this arch, okay, see that channel there? So it's adjustable, so it can slide up front and back on the arch on the machine. Slides right here at this point, just like how this one is slotted, so you could adjust that. So before we put the other piece on, I just want to show you something. So basically, when you load up this pattern, because this pattern is a straight line pattern for the offset arch, okay? So now that's where that pattern is. So you could take this feed plate, put the feed plate on here, put the one screw in place, because this is what you would do putting it back on. Keep that in the center here right now so we could just test it. And what you do is you make the clamp come down, which makes this mechanism down. There's no arch here, but you can see what's going on. And then jog it around from point to point. And if it's not going to hit anything, you could put a piece of tape on here. Let's actually do that. Tighten that down. Let's put a piece of paper here and a tape. And make a paper perforation that you can leave on the machine so you can line up the arch again. Don't put the other screw on here right now. We're just gonna test this here, so just tighten that so it doesn't move on us. I'm just gonna demonstrate putting a piece of tape here and a piece of paper. So again, you do this without the thread on here. Just pick a piece of paper underneath there. And we're going to just tape it in place. Let's put the piece of tape right over the top of that. All right? And then when we cycle the machine, it leaves a paper perforation on here. So then you can take the arch and line it up in this direction here. Because it goes into a channel, it's only going to go into one spot. You just can't, it's got adjustment in this direction. So now let's take this thing off. And I'm going to shut the power off on this again. So that's going to be a similar method when we go to put the other pattern on. I mean, ideally, we actually have a plate that has a big cutout in it that we use for test plates for all different sizes, but not everybody's going to have that. So you put the feed plate on, get your two screws in place. And don't tighten it up yet at this point. What we want to do is we want to load up the pattern. So we're going to load up the pattern here first. In this case, the pattern number is, I believe it's 10. Okay? And then we know that this pattern starts here, but even if I didn't, without the clamp on here, I could just press this button to make the clamp come down, and then use the plus key to jog it, and you can see where it's going to go. So as long as I'm not hitting the plate, I can center it up. Now I'll tighten these 2 screws, tighten the 2 screws up. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a piece of tape on there. Okay, I'm just going to double check it again by hitting the plus and minus keys here, and you can see that the needle's not going to hit anything. So that's all right. So I'm just going to hit the reset button, go back to the beginning. I'm going to put a piece of tape here. And then I'm going to cycle the machine. Again, there's no arch, there's no thread in here, so we're just making a preparation. So this is just 2 stitches. So now I know where everything is. Now I can take the arch assembly, make the clamp come down by pressing that button. Now this customer ordered a completed arch assembly, but normally if you didn't have that, once you took the arch assembly off, you would just change it from this front part of the arch. I'm going to go through some terminology here because there's some confusion on that. We call this an arch. It's an arch frame. Okay? This part here is the leg. This moves up and down. Okay? And then this is going to be the foot or the clamp. All right? Now, this particular application, they're only using one side of the clamp. So there's only one leg here. So if you didn't have an extra arch to put this on, you would have to take this arch off and take these legs out of the machine, out of the arch assembly, and put in the new clamp. A lot of times, you could just take these screws off and screw our clamp onto it and then just make your adjustments. So now here, I'm going to go from this view. I can see that the 2 perforations that I'm in the center. I actually can move this up just a little bit. And basically all we're doing is loosening this screw and moving it forward. So you're doing this when the power's on so that the motor is holding everything in place. So now that's pretty good. Now we can put the spring on. And this one here, the spring goes on this side. Because again, we're only using 1/2 of a clamp here. Make sure everything is nice and tight. We've got the other spring on the other side as well because we actually have an extra piece helping holding this down. You should probably use a pair of pliers to hold that so you don't slip and hurt your fingers. But we're trained mechanics and trained professionals. So here we go. All right, so now we've got that set up. And now you could thread it up, take the piece of paper off, and you could cycle the machine. So we're going to just thread this up real quick. Goes through those top links. Make sure you're in between the tensions, around the check spring, into the take-up lever. Through the thread guide, and then through the needle. Now, if you see the length of this video on YouTube, right now at this point we're at 9 minutes and 15 seconds, and we've changed from one arch assembly to the other, and we're ready to sew. This one, the trimmers were turned off because of this particular application. So we've turned it off in the pattern. That way it's only turned off for this particular application. And that tells you really how this is all done.